Good morning, my name is Lynn Lovejoy, and I am the ESU Chile manager for all of our special events. It's a great pleasure to be here at the university today for the public speaking competition. The public speaking competition is one of the flagstaff competitions for ESU. Any ESU chapter that is a member of ESU must have the public speaking competition. They can do other activities, other presentations, other events, but to be an ESU chapter, the one thing that they ask is that you always do the public speaking competition and select your candidate to represent your country and send them to the international competition in London. So you're part of the Flagstaff event. I'd also like to say, I'd like to take this time to thank everyone that participated in our event. Since the pandemic, we've been getting more and more people involved again. You can see on our board there, all of the students that participated in this year's pandemic, because it was virtual, they're able to prepare their video, send it to the judges, and then the top candidates are the ones that we select for our semifinals. So we've decided to continue doing that during the pandemic, post-pandemic, because it involved a lot more schools from outreach that aren't in the Santiago area. We'd like to thank all of you for having made it to be a semi-final, and I see two are missing. I thought everybody was here. Do we have participants that are in the peanut gallery as opposed to the hot seats? Okay. Okay. And the other one checked in but isn't here?
Oh, this is Cristóbal, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's close.
All right, well, nonetheless, these are our top finalists that made it to our semifinal round, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank you for all your efforts and all of the support that you got from your family and your school support staff to get here through the years. And give yourself a round of applause for getting this far. It certainly is an accomplishment to represent your school, and that is no easy task to be the representative. Let's see if we can get. Technology is my friend and my enemy. Yeah? Okay, go ahead. Okay. So, in the English-speaking union, as I said, there are chapters throughout the world, and they hold nationwide public speaking competitions. Each national winner, including the first place winner that will be determined today, will be invited to the International Public Speaking Competition in London, England, and it will be held at the Royal Institution the week of the 13th to the 17th of May. Note that there are 60 countries that are part of the international ESU members, and Chile is one of them. Yeah, okay. The ESU was founded in 1918, just after World War I. It's to promote peace and greater understanding worldwide, and they set the goals to promote education across the English-speaking world and beyond, respecting the traditions and heritage of those whom we work, whilst acknowledging the current events and issues that affect them. To use English as a means of international communication of knowledge and understanding. The ESU received the Royal Chapter from Her Majesty the Queen as the patron, and the late Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was the president of the period during 1952 to 2011. In 2011, Her Royal Highness Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, took over as the ESU president. Princess Royal was in Chile in 2018 and had a meeting with Richard Collinswood Selby, the founder of the 2004 ESU Chile. The Princess Royal's visit in Chile in 2018, she did meet with Jonathan Cullen, who was then president of the ESU Chile. Later, he went on to be international president throughout all of the chapters. And Anna Maria was the vice president at that time, and she is now our ESU president for Chile. ESU is a nonprofit organization, and it has a lot of highly qualified volunteers. They donate their time, their experience for you to participate. They want to organize this event, and to do this, it took 25 different judges with affiliation from 20 different institutions. An impressive list, I must say. The person that is in charge of getting our judges all volunteer. They're volunteering from their busy day to do this because they think it's important to promote English to our future generations. So you can see it's not just any one institution, it's not just any one university or main campus. We have a wide variety of people that are affiliated with ESU. And I would say that we should take the time to thank all of our judges from round one, our semifinals this morning, and the final heat to decide who will represent Chile this year. Thank you to our judges. The ASU competition has a rubric that the judges use, and the participants and the school staff know that this is the guideline to help prepare them for their presentations. None of the participants are able to see the final rubrics, the individual scores of the judges. The decision of the judges are final. They're all professionals. They've made their decisions. Those scores are averaged. There's always a team of at least 3 judges that will be looking at any given speaker. And so they have the details on the 4 main areas for our presentations. One is expression and delivery of the speech, which has to do specifically with your content and your delivery of the content within the speech. The second area is on reasoning and evidence. What kind of resources, what kind of evidence you have put together and woven in and flow into your speech to show that it's not just your opinion, but the opinion of many others. The third area is the organization of the speech. We all know that there should be an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, but how creative and interesting were they in how they did that presentation? The last area is today with our semifinals and our final heats. The judges will ask, after they present their speech, a specific question about the content within their speech. This is a chance for an informal, see what they know about their topic. So each judge will ask a question and they will have an opportunity to briefly respond why they included that or why they left certain things out. Many people research and leave a lot of things out that they don't have room to work in. So this is an opportunity for you to show them why according to the questions that are asked. after they finish, then the judges will complete some comments on things that they thought were particularly strong in your speech and things that you could work on. The kinds of things that will come up, it's not that you didn't do all of these things. They could probably check all of them because you're the top speaker at your school. But they're gonna say, of your speech, what really struck you as the highlights? What was the strength of your particular speech, how you put it together? And if you had the opportunity to rework it, something that you could work on. Not that you didn't do it, but it's something that you could maybe clean up or work on editing. Okay? Then when all of the presentations are done, we will have a formal impromptu time. And at that time, we will take current events, and they were all posted on the website, so you would see the various possibilities, and we put them in here, and we will randomly pull out one, and we will randomly pull out a name of one of you, and you'll have 1 minute to collect your thoughts, and then tell us what you think about it. This again gives the judges an opportunity to see your informal public speaking skills. If you're comfortable with speaking, if you can engage your audience, if you can rattle off some things without having to always have it prepared. So this gives them an opportunity to see you again in an informal situation so that you can possibly move on to be our final candidate. So we will give more details at the time for the impromptu, but all of this was posted on the website, and that's not any big surprise to anyone here. We'd also like to take this time to thank our host for hosting this. This event travels around to different facilities any given year. And this year we have the pleasure of being invited to the University of Los Andes. And on the campus, we would like to specifically thank Mr. Matthias Peterson, who is the Dean of Faculty of Social Science, Ms. Jofina Ortega, who is the Economic Vice Dean, Ms. Isabel Pavez, the Academic Vice Dean, Mr. Ignacio Ilenes, Head of School of Education, Ms. Fernanda Montoya, who's the Academic Director of the School of Education, Ms. Tamara Alvarez, who's the Director of the Internship and Practical Training School of Education, and Ms. Rebecca Sanchez, the Coordinator of Admissions and Facilities Liaison. In order to be sitting in this room, we had to get clearance from each and every one of those people. So thank you very much. They also have a really good, strong scholarship program here. And they want you to take advantage of the facilities, and they have a very short video that they have prepared. And I think they want to give you a little bit about the video that you're about to see.
Exactly. Well, I belong to the School of Education, and I would like to share this video with you, okay? And invite you to become part of our faculty and become a teacher, all right? So we're going to watch the video.
Las fronteras en la educación. Me llamo Josefina Willy y estudio Pedagogía Básica Bilingüe, carrera única en Chile. Lo que más me gusta de mi carrera es que tengo ramos prácticos desde el primer año y que el 70% de la malla es en inglés. Actualmente estoy postulando para irme de intercambio a Inglaterra. Y tú también podrías hacerlo con la nueva beca Valdés, Profesores para Chile, que reciben todos los alumnos convocados a las carreras de la Facultad de Educación que crecen con el puntaje necesario. Y te da la oportunidad de irte de intercambio de una carrera o seguir perfeccionando terminando tu posgrado aquí en la universidad. Si quieres saber más sobre esta beca, te invito a informarte en nuestra página web. ¡Anímate!
I would speak a little Spanish because people who are online maybe are not going to understand me, alright? El video que acabamos de ver se refiere a las grandes posibilidades de beca que ofrecemos en nuestra facultad para todos los alumnos, especialmente los que están acá, que son de colegios particulares pagados, en las 3 carreras que ofrecemos: pedagogía básica convenciones, educación de párvulos convenciones y pedagogía básica bilingüe, que es la alumna que acaban de ver el video. Ella se refiere a la beca de intercambio, ¿no es cierto?, o de continuidad de estudios, y esta beca es única en la Universidad Chilena. La beca que nuestra estudiante comenta consta de 120 UFs, que son casi 4,5 millones de pesos, para que los estudiantes que queden convocados en las carreras y tengan un puntaje alto, un puntaje de 730 puntos en educación de párvulo, pedagogía básica, 830 en pedagogía básica bilingüe, pueden estudiar con nosotros. Es una tremenda oportunidad que estamos compartiendo con ustedes. Nos gustaría también que ustedes fueran parte de eso y que a futuro puedan traer sus estudiantes para el concurso. Thank you so much.
We also want to thank our keynote speakers. We'll hear a little bit more about each of those keynote speakers before their presentations. We have both the Director of Innovation, and we also, later in the day, will have the Professor of Theater and Literature. So we have an opportunity for you to learn how to present your ideas in a much better way and have this be a learning experience for you as well. We'd also like to thank Jane Chambers, and whoever wins first place will get to know her a little bit better. She is one of our consultants that we have arranged to help on your second speech, because when you go to London, you will have to prepare a second 5-minute speech on another theme. So she will help you get that prepared. She'll prepare you to go to this space in London. And she presently is one of the consultants with the BBC, so she knows London well, she knows the establishment, and she will be a very big help for you, because the first place gold winner that we select today will go on to the competition at the Royal Institute in London the week of the 13th to the 17th of May. Now the airfare will be provided for the winner. That's provided by ESU Chile. And the accommodations are provided by ESU organization in London. So you'll be staying with participants from the other countries. All of that will be provided for the participant, and anyone that would like to accompany them, the participant from your home or your school, are allowed to make arrangements and go to certain parts of the day. But it is targeted specifically to be a 1 week to network with other people from other countries. We'd also like to welcome back last year's 223 ESU gold medal winner that represented us, Trinidad Guzmán. She was a student from Colegio Cumbres last year. She's graduated and she's now a first-year student right here at the University Los Andes. She's been invited to come back and speak briefly about the process that she went through to prepare her speech for the national competition. This is our national competition, as well as the second speech that she prepared for going to London. She will then give the speech that she prepared and gave to everyone in London, which she titled Clarity Classic. Now, the speakers have the opportunity to be here if they have notes and they want to have their notes available. When you're scored, you're not detrimented in any way for having been organized and have note cards or an outline, as long as you can still maintain eye contact and engage your audience. So you have the opportunity to speak here, Or if you prefer, you can come down into the pit and get closer with your audience. We don't need to have a microphone. We have the ancient civilizations of the Greeks and the Romans to thank for the acoustics in here. So you should be able to be heard very well from either spot. Okay? Trinidad, would you join?
I'm gonna do this with a little bit of help because, as Linan said, I don't have a lot of time right now as a law student. But good morning, everybody here, students, ESU staff, participants, and judges. My name is Guzmán, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about my experience during the 2023 ESU Public Speaking Competition. For those of you who don't know me, I'm 18 years old and freshly graduated from Crovari School last year, and I am now here studying law. I was also lucky enough to be last year's public speaking competition winner here in Santiago, and went on to represent Chile at the International Public Speaking Competition held in London every year, where I competed along 35 other participants. It was around last year at this time where I presented my speech in front of some familiar faces that I see here today, and talked about the importance of international relations and how countries need each other to go on, grow, and persevere. The journey throughout that speech and the making of that speech was a journey I thoroughly enjoyed because I really do like public speaking. So I spent my summer investigating about what they were and why they were so important. But then, well, you guys know how the online competition goes. You send your video, you get feedback. And then I was selected, like you all 10, as the top 10 finalist for the ESU Public Speaking Competition. After reciting my speech and the very nerve-wracking at the time improv speech where Linan gave the topics, I was announced as the Chilean representative for Chile at IPSC. But to get me there was a long journey. From the very beginning, I had immense support, starting with, of course, my family, but also the ESU staff played a huge role. Linan and Jane Chambers both helped me realize what I needed to say and how I needed to say it, as well as Jonathan Cullen, who helped me in London and went to every Heaton speech as possible, going as far as inviting Chile's ambassador to the UK at the time. I had the time of my life in London, but it would be unfair for me to say that I didn't have my worries or that I wasn't nervous. The first thing on my mind when they gave me that cup was, what will 35 other people from different countries have in common? Because we are all so different. And I didn't know it at the time, but the answer was fairly simple. First of all, yes, the age did help, but we also had the urge to say something, and we also spoke the same language, which of course helped. I really could speak here all day talking about what a great time I had at IPSC, but I narrowed it down to 3 lessons that I still think about about a year after competing at IPSC. First, we are not as different as we think we are. This was a fear that I said before I had the minute I got announced as the winner, because what will 35 people have in common? And yes, the age, for starters, and also language helped, but I didn't know at the time that we all had, one, the urge to say something, but also we wanted to share our experiences and learn from one another. I also want to say that when I was announced and I told people, oh, I was going to ESU and 35 people from 35 different countries, before I even met these people, everybody had an opinion about how they were going to be. I got told, oh, Canadians are really nice, so you should be friends with them, or I hope you get a roommate with Spanish descent, because I think they're very similar to us. And yes, they were right. Helen, who's Canadian, is one of my friends right now, and we still communicate to this day. And Mario from Murcia, Spain, is very funny and still holds the same Latin American humor that we all do. But it would be a pity to not include the other 33 participants who are also very nice to me. Something that comes to mind was that the day after, or the day before arriving into the competition, I was turning 18. And when the other participants got hold of this information, they went to my room on the 9th of May at 12 o'clock sharp to sing me happy birthday. And the next day they gave me a birthday card. We knew each other an hour ago, and now they're singing happy birthday. And I got a birthday card and like presents from people that I met hours ago. So it was very nice, and it helped me realize that kindness has no gender, race, or culture. And third, public speaking skills are tools for your lifetime. And no, I am not saying this because we are in a public speaking competition, but because when we talked about with the other participants about the importance of public speaking, we realized that it helps us speak what we want to say it in a good manner. And also life oftentimes gets far too complicated, and being able to say what you want to say, as well as other people being able to understand it, is something that will not only help teachers or lawyers who speak like this often, but also everybody in every kind of career. Before I finish off, I was told by Linan that it would be a good idea for me to tell you a shortened speech about Clarity Classic, which speaks about the importance of the first impression.
I'm going to interrupt you, Trinidad. I'm sorry to do this, but we have to change our schedule a little bit. Our keynote speaker, Anil, well, he's an entrepreneur sort of guy, and he's got a lot of things on his plate. And I'm going to interrupt you here so he can give his presentation, and then we'll finish you up.
Okay, I'll finish off later.
Okay, so I would like to have this opportunity to introduce Dr. Anil Sadarangani. He's the Director of Innovation at the University of Los Andes. He transitioned from the laboratory research of management, driven by his desire to bridge science with society. Initially, he was drawn to cytology, and then he pursued biology, later focusing on cancer research. After completing his degree at the Universidad Católica in Chile, he earned an MBA in California, emphasizing innovation, entrepreneurship, and Anil has worked in Spain, the United Kingdom, the United States, Chile, where he is currently responsible for bridging the University of Los Andes technology and society. In recent years, he's been developing parallel projects such as teaching and integrating the girls into STEM program, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, into those careers, as well as mentoring various startups pro bono. It means he's not going to get any money for it. So, thank you very much. And can you bring it up?
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the organizers for the invitation. I apologize to you, but I have a meeting that I have to run 5 minutes ago, so I really apologize for interrupting. I'd like to congratulate the semifinalists for being here. I think it's a great honor for you guys to represent your school. I was born in Spain. My parents are Indian. I was born in Spain, and I did a similar competition in my British school. I was studying in Spain, and it was fantastic to be in the UK representing my school. So congratulations. If I heard correctly, it was Richard calling himself who was one of the stars of this initiative. Well, he was my principal. I studied at Redland School, so I just saw that, so that's good for him. It was a great school. One of the things that my parents pushed from the very beginning was for me and my brother to study at British school. They knew the importance of learning English. It was not our first language, as you can tell. My accent is not perfect, but we were, I think, pushing up for us to learn the language, and it brought in my life different advantages. And I want to mention some of them because I think it's important for you guys to know. And of course, you will easily feel how this, knowing English, it was good for me. As you know, today we live in a globalized world. I'm the Director of Innovation here at the Universidad of Los Andes. I'm trying to identify different technologies that are affecting our lives every day. As you can imagine, all these technologies, all these scientific publications, they come in the English language, right? Everything is published in the best journals that are in English. So the way to be at the frontier of the wave, or surfing the wave, is to basically learn everything in English. I have a couple of anecdotes. When I entered the university, we started reading the scientific papers. You guys have heard about papers? So I came out of British school, so I was reading the paper when I entered the metro at Los Dominicos. I'm a little bit older. So the first station was in Vespucio, Escuela Militar. And I took the metro from there to Universidad Católica, to my university. It was like 15 minutes. So I remember we printed our papers, and I was reading in the metro those 15 minutes. And I had classmates that unluckily they had to read the papers 2 months ahead of time. Because they didn't know English, they had to translate word by word. And of course then the technical difficulty, right, of understanding what was written on the paper. So it was a huge advantage for me that my parents were lucky enough to give me the education in English. And after that, it was, again, as I did my career in science, I always was reading papers, I was reading books, and it was easy for me to get the language. My kids right now, they are students at Redland School also. They're going to my same school. Hope I'll see them in a couple of years here. They're small still, and I'll see them hopefully competing in one of these instances. And one of the main things that I also want to talk today about is the language of the internet, of academia, the world's leading publication, the databases, everything's in English. All the main journals, like I talked before, are in English. The main conferences are held in English. So I think you guys have a great advantage compared to your peers. And you guys have to use that advantage in favor. One of the things that we're trying to do, at least in the university, I'm trying to push the scientific knowledge, but it's also based in English. Sometimes we have the problem that most of the girls, especially, they don't enter science careers. I have a girl, her name is Amelia, she's 6 years old. I'm trying, because of her, also to push the STEM education in English in schools that are not as privileged as maybe the ones that you come from. So if you guys want to volunteer, and I invite you to that, to maybe when you come back for a moment, the winner or the finalists, to help me teach science in English to the girls and boys of Chile, you're very welcome. I'd be happy to come with your, of course, with your assistance. And I just want to finish also saying that speaking English has helped me also in the personal growth. It gave me a lot of confidence, adaptability, and it's also been scientifically demonstrated that speaking different languages gives you some cognitive benefits. I wrote here some of the things that I was studying before. You're better at improving problem solving, mental flexibility, enhanced memory, and of course, more attention span. So there's a lot of neurological processes going inside your brain when you learn different languages. For me, it was English and a bit of French, which I don't remember at all, only the bad words, of course. But again, I think it's important for you guys to be here. It was a little pep talk, but I don't want to get interrupted in that. I really apologize. But again, good luck, the best of all for today, and hopefully the winner can bring the cup back to Chile again. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm back. I think I was going to say the Clarity Classic speech. Okay, yes. Clarity Classic, the topics, well, you guys know this, the topics that they give us here are different than the ones that they gave you in London. So the topics, or the topic that was given to me was first impressions are very important, or they last. They're very important, something like that. Okay. I don't think it's fair for some pretty girls to have a lot of things and other girls nothing at all. Something that Amy March said at the beginning of her book, Little Women. Little Women is a big topic in my house. We are constantly debating which character we each are, my dad included, and I've always related to Amy in some kind of way because, one, she is the youngest, and I have been called annoying by my sister, so of course I resonated to her since a very young age. Yet the general public does not seem to agree, as there have been numerous articles and conversations talking about what a bad character the youngest March sister is. But why is this important? A study made by the University of Chicago revealed that as people, we tend to need more proof to believe someone's moral character is worse than better, which in simple words, it says that it is easier to become a sinner than a saint. An example, everybody, being Amy, up until 2019's new Little Women film, in which we get our first glance at her, all grown up rather than a child, in a scene titled, I think, New Impressions. And suddenly everybody loved Amy, and I loved her first, but that's okay. I tried to share her. But the funny thing was that when we first met her in the books, people only saw her for what she was, and when we saw her in the movie, we saw her for what she could become. she being the perfect example to demonstrate. And when we first meet people, we just see them for the future and not the past, which brings me actually to last year. We're investigating about first impressions and the importance of them. I decided to make an experiment, and I asked some of my closest friends and teachers and family what was their first impression of me. And I did receive some flattering responses, but not all of them were positive. A friend of mine that I've known forever said that when she first met me, the word airhead popped into her head. And I was very offended, but I tried to brush it off, and later that day I was talking to somebody, football being the theme which I know nothing about, and all of a sudden I caught myself being quite detached and foolish about the conversation. So, was my friend right all along? No, because I can act smart sometimes. And yes, because when she met me, I was probably acting foolish. I wasn't the only one who did this experiment. Charlene Rocha, a TED Talk speaker, did too. And in her speech, she said that she admired people who were themselves 100% of the time. But it's hard for us to do that. And the worst thing is that when we first meet people, we just see some kind of stereotype or box instead of thinking who they are truly. And don't get me wrong, these boxes could very well be positive. I often hear things such as men are leaders or women are caring, but by using these, don't we disqualify the ability for men to be kind-hearted and women from being positive leaders? Constantly focusing on what makes people different instead of thinking what makes us unique. A term or something that we can only apply to Amy and myself, but to many of you here. And I know I've been talking a lot about women, but these terms apply to everybody, not just us. An example being someone that we all know, Frida Kahlo. We see her in books and notebooks or even throw pillows. And now we see her as this icon, right? But at the time, people only saw her for these two things, a Latin American and her gender. But thankfully, we can do something about this. We need to use tools and things when we first meet people because we simply do not know their circumstances, their backstory, or what was going on in their head that day when we met them that made them maybe insecure or a little bit foolish. So please, the next time you meet an Amy, an airhead, or a cool Latin American, please remember that there's much more to us. That's what says on their cover. Okay, thank you. That was the speech that I did there. Okay, to finish off, because I have talked for a long time, I want to thank everybody here at ESU for inviting me back. I really wanted to be here. And congratulate all of you who made it to the semifinal, as making it to the top 10 is no easy feat, and I know it takes a lot of time and effort, but a lot of energy, and I think that if you're here, you all find it to be very fun. Remember that you are not only here representing your school, but also representing yourselves, which I think is very important. And to the winner and the future representative of Chile at the International Public Speaking Competition, I am both very jealous and very excited for you to experience this incredible and memorable journey. Good luck.
Okay, thank you, Trinidad. That was a great speech, and she's done a wonderful job representing herself, representing her school, and representing her country. And she definitely has a certain natural instinct to be a public speaker, but having seen her early speeches, she has improved incredibly. The public speaking is one of those things, the more you do it, the more you become comfortable with it. The more opportunities you have to share your ideas with others, particularly if it's not your first language. It's easier for me. English is my first language. I didn't have to learn it as a second language. So to express yourself and have enough vocabulary to keep your audience engaged is quite an accomplishment. So Trinidad, we thank you very much for that, and give her another round of applause. She not only went on to London, but throughout the week as they had the elimination heats, she made it all the way to the final heat with the top 6 candidates. One of you will get all the way to number 1 this year. We'll see. But she indeed is an inspiration for all of our participants, and we thank you for that. We'd like to thank Anil again. Sorry that he had to rush off and you didn't have a chance to engage in any questions with him. He is involved in a very important program, something that actually Trinidad spoke to in her speech about engaging women and the roles that women play and still have to fight for a place within society. So he's got some very interesting things, and hopefully some of you will have the opportunity to work with him at some point, because it's a program that, as a woman visiting here in Chile, all of Latin America needs to have a better appreciation for the women that are in leadership positions here, I think. So our program of the day, how are we doing on our time? Well, actually, we were supposed to finish our keynotes by 9:30, so I've lived in Chile long enough to know that if you're 15, 20 minutes, then you're just being stylishly late, so we can adjust that accordingly with our break times. So we will try and get moving as soon as possible into our rooms, and we will just adjust accordingly so that we have our break just start a little bit later than what was scheduled, so everybody still has enough time for their presentations. So we'll adjust our schedule accordingly. What I want to do before you go is just a couple of reminders. All of these things are not new to any of our participants and the people that helped prepare them, but for our audience so that they would know, we have asked all of our participants to not wear their school uniform or clothing or anything that identifies their school. That's because they're speaking to represent themselves today. Not their family name, not their school, but today you're representing yourself. Later you can take the glory for your school and all those that helped you to get there, but for today you're speaking for yourself. Which is why we put on the name tags just their given name and not their family name. Speakers are supposed to be wearing something formal, casual formal, no jeans, t-shirts, and trainers. Public speaking when you're presenting yourself is a formal thing, and it makes a difference, your first impressions that you make. The participants are not to introduce themselves by their family name or their school. They are supposed to simply begin with the title of their speech. They were asked to have no visual aids or props. And I know in this day and age, that is always something that helps and enhance. We have a PowerPoint going right now. But again, when you're judged for your public speaking, we want to hear just your voice. As if you were on a podcast or a radio show, can we hear in your voice the expression, even if we didn't see the gestures that you were doing? Let your voice speak for you, and your gesture should be a complement to it. Okay. If you are standing behind the table to use as a podium, that's fine. If you want to go out into the center to be more comfortable, that is fine as well. There's no detriment to holding your notes or holding note cards. Again, it's just a matter of still engaging your audience. Okay? You will be called up when it's your turn to speak, so you can get in position. And then the timekeeper that we have will give you a 1-minute warning, and the timekeeper will be sitting in the row where the judges are. They'll be close by there so that you can see. Your 1-minute warning will be at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Your second warning will be at 5 minutes, because your speech is supposed to be 5 minutes with a buffer time, right? If you're so absorbed that you don't see your 2-minute warning, by the time the third warning at 5 minutes and 30 seconds, we will say stop in the middle of your sentence. So watch for your warning, and if you've gone off track and rambled a little bit or added more than you thought, wrap it up when you see the second warning so that nobody knows that you adjusted. Okay? So there will be silent warnings, and then you'll be thanked to sit down, and each of the judges will have about 5 minutes to enter the information into the online rubrics and send the information back. When all of that has been sorted out for that speaker, then we'll call up the next speaker. Okay? So they will enter their scores after the question and answer period. Remember that after you finish, you will stay in your position, and each of the judges will ask you one question that you can shortly respond to. So for a 5-minute speech, we've given 15 minutes for each speaker to give you a chance to answer the questions and the judges to enter. The judges will have time at the end to discuss any tiebreakers and close things, so they don't need to discuss anything at this point, just enter their reactions for this particular presentation. Okay. So that means we selected you alphabetical order by your given name, so you can thank your parents for that. And we had a couple of them that were the same names, so we swapped them around to be in different heats, but we kept it alphabetical. So Auditorium A will stay where you're at, and then Auditorium B, you guys should sit in the same order. So look who's sitting next to you and get yourself situated next door in the same order in the front row. And there'll be a row of judges behind the video. And during the presentations, the row right behind the judges is off limits for the audience. They can sit anywhere else in the area, but not the row directly behind the judges. Okay? So I would say the luck of the Irish be with you all. And I'll see you back after the break. We'll adjust accordingly, and then we will come in here, all of us back in the same spots for our impromptu speeches. We'll do the formal impromptu speeches all together. Okay? Okay, off you go.
You're assuming you're on the other one. Break a leg.
Can I go with And to my presenters, I'm going to remind you that I will call you up, and you have the choice to stand here or behind the podium, whichever spot.
Si tienes acceso a la transmisión,
Either spot is fine. If you're out here, you
a la transmisión
should
de
be somewhat stationary. You're not working the whole room, okay? You should be somewhat stationary, but some people prefer not to have that in front of them, okay? Be sure to project, because we'll have the cameras that we want to be able to share your videos with teachers next year on what kinds of things should my students be doing, and we'll say, well, here's last year's top candidates and see what they did. So be sure and speak out and be ready to go. I will ask you to come up. Like I said, you start with your title, give your speech, watch for the warning. You'll get 1 minute warning at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. You have 1 minute to finish it up, right? Then your second warning is at 5 minutes. If you're not at your conclusion by that point, you should do that, because at the third warning, 5 minutes and 30 seconds, we say stop and you're cut off in the middle of the sentence. So when you get your second warning, you should be ready to go into your conclusion and wrap it up. End with a punch.
Are the warnings said out loud? Or
Nope,
is it
all silent, all silent. Right there, she's gonna be sitting right there, and she'll hold up warning 1, warning 2, and warning 3.
Thank
If you're working the crowd like you're supposed to, you'll see it. If you're so absorbed, you lose.
Thank you.
Okay? Keep everybody on task, you know what to do. Okay. Our first speaker?
Is your life half empty or half full? A very normal part in your daily routine can be going to the kitchen, grabbing a glass, and filling it up with water. And there is nothing strange about that, right? But now, let's imagine you drank exactly half of it. Is it all still that simple? Now, we are talking about the very well-known half full or half empty glass. One of the most famous examples of how different human minds are from one another. And as this glass, we have plenty of situations in our daily lives where we will have two sides, options, or points of view, regularly a positive and a negative one. But how can we know which one is correct? Or which one is better? The answer is very simple. There don't have to be sides. It's all in your mind. But let's return to our glass. If you told me it's half empty, but I told you it's half full, you could easily force your mind to see the other side if you really wanted to. I think we should do this more often in our daily lives, to try to see the bright side of things, to see the glass half full. We need to understand that not everything has to be bad. Well, you see, a long time ago, the human society created these labels, such as good and bad, or if something is helpful or not. And they did this with the purpose of simplifying things, to get to agreements easier. And yes, it is useful for laws and norms. In the end, it's thanks to these labels that we know robbing or driving past a red light won't be correct anywhere we go. But there are situations where it is necessary to think out of the box, to get these labels out of our head in order to focus on the objective learning from the experience, rather than the goodness or the badness of the situation. We cannot prevent good or bad events from happening, but we can, however, decide whether or not to label these events. And furthermore, whether or not we can let those events go and keep living here and now. And we have listened to this message all throughout our lives, maybe without even noticing it. In literature, with books like How to Kill a Mockingbird or authors like Shakespeare. In movies like Disney's famous Inside Out, or in music, with songs like Buddy De Silva's Look for the Silver Lining or Stronger by Kelly Clarkson. Also, many philosophers like Rousseau have talked about this topic in different ways since the beginning of times, saying that optimism leads you to live more peaceful, happier, and fulfilled lives. Even though now, I know it's even more than that. Because according to research conducted by Harvard and Boston universities in 2008, people with a positive outlook on life appear to live healthier, as they proved that optimism protects your heart. Literally. Results showed that it reduced risks of hypertension and heart attacks, besides from helping people recover correctly from surgery or other cardiac procedures. But apart from our physical health, another study in the US, this time conducted by the National Institute of Health, associated optimism with mental disorders, reporting positive effects on anxiety and depression. And this because a positive thinking eliminates a risk factor with these disorders, which is hopelessness. And let me tell you something. If you're struggling with that, it's completely normal to experience a negative reaction while dealing loss or pain. But the key here is to let those negative emotions go away before they become entrenched and obsessive. And that's where we need to redirect our energy towards positive, enlightening, and productive thoughts. Your mind is powerful, so use it. In conclusion, I know being optimistic seems difficult, even in our daily life. In a breakup, when scoring low in an important test, or even while getting stuck in traffic. But as famous Voltaire once said, you have no control over the hand that life deals you, but how you play that hand is entirely up to you. So the next time you think you're passing through a bad time, get your glass full again, and remember, nothing has to be bad. Thank
you. Judges, you should have one question prepared to ask her about her speech. We can just go down the lineup one at a time. Who's ready to throw out a question?
From your perspective, from your personal perspective, you have given us a kind of a comparative way of seeing this, whether you are half empty or full emptiness. From your own perspective, how do you see yourself approach towards this subject?
Okay, in my daily life, yes. I try to be as positive as I can, but there are situations where it seems impossible. But I have to say, after writing this speech, I try to remember it throughout the day and try to be as positive as I can. So I see myself as an optimistic person.
Okay, so I don't know if you have another question.
It's another question.
Okay. Hello, good morning. Why do you think there are people who tend to see things in a negative way quite often?
That's a pretty good question. I think as people, we all have different personalities, and maybe it's because of that. But I would like to say that I don't know if there's a reason. It's just your personality that make yourself think in a bad way, and also your surroundings, maybe.
Thank you.
All right. So now that you have researched on this theme topic, how can you face a friend or a relative that's facing a bad situation? How can you help them maybe change their minds?
I like that question. Last week, I had to help one of my best friends who was dealing with a romantic breakup, and I try to say what I said in my speech, to focus on the learning that you can have from the experience and the experience you can gain through that, and try to work the negative emotions you have and try to see it as the learning.
Good, good. Thank you. You can have a seat. Okay, we're ready for our second speaker. Yes. We're ready for our second speaker. Excuse me, ladies. We're ready for our second speaker.
Yes.
right or wrong, unraveling social construct. I want you to take a moment, close your eyes, and imagine for a second that you're 7 years old, constantly asking your parents, why do I have to go to sleep so early? When this happened to me, my parents usually told me something like, because it's good for you. But then, one day, they told me a universal phrase that we've all heard more times than we can count. It's correct because I say so. But that was so hard back then, and even now, to understand that we're not always right. This happens mainly because we don't take into consideration other postures or perspectives that aren't ours. But there's also a very crucial factor, the fear of being wrong. Who in this room likes being wrong? No one, right? We can all say with certainty that nobody's perfect, but at the same time, no one likes to admit when they're wrong. Isn't that condescending? To even begin to unravel this topic, we need to know how decision-making works, alongside with the fact that morals, and moreover the definition of good and bad, is something completely subjective. Therefore, how does our brain interpret this information and can gather whether the action is good or bad? This job is mainly taken care of by our conscience, and is considered to be, by many scientists, the one thing that makes us human. To make a decision in something, we have to go through a series of steps to achieve it. First, we need to gather all of the information around us through various senses, such as sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. Then, these are processed by different regions of the brain, and are associated with past life experiences. When all of this is done, we can decide whether something is good or bad, and we act accordingly, taking into consideration how other people around us would react and how we have done it in the past. All of this decision-making can change abruptly if we're faced with circumstances where life and death are balanced. A great example of this is the tragedy of the Andes Mountain that happened in 1972. A Uruguayan plane crashed in the middle of the mountain range, and the survivors, left for 72 days with no food or warmth, were left to ingest their deceased friends in order to survive. When they came back, they were seen as monsters because of this fact. But now, more than 50 years later, they're seen as heroes, and many movies have been shown of this actual prospect. We can all say that this can change in relation of how we feel about the actions, and the circumstances change with the fact that we know when and why the decision is changing. So, how can we decide whether something is good or bad? According to the Oxford Dictionary, good is defined as morally acceptable, and bad as morally unacceptable. But this is a concept that is completely subjective, because there's basically everyone has their own morals and beliefs. Therefore, this can change because it depends on the time, people, and situation that you're in. Take, for example, Robin Hood. He stole from the rich to give it to the poor. Stealing is considered as a bad action, but giving it away to those in need basically makes him a hero. So, is it possible to contrast good with bad? And if so, who gets to decide when it's enough? In my opinion, there are no good or bad people, just different actions made by them. In another point similar to this, studies have shown by the psych test researchers that when we make a decision, we always have a fear that we're gonna be ridiculed. There was a study made about this topic that showed that more than 4,700 survey responders, 66% believe that talking about their wrongs will make them vulnerable to rejection and mockery from others. And 67% hate admitting that they're wrong. This can induce stress that ultimately accelerates the aging process. And it's actually a very good reason for us not to speak our mind and our opinion when we're with other people. In conclusion, we can say our mind has to go through a very serious process to decide whether something is good or bad, and we can never take it for granted. We can also state that this decision can change drastically if we're faced with life or death circumstances. And with that, I would like to leave you with a final phrase, said by Marco Fultz. Everything is a learning experience, both good and bad. You take what happens around you and you learn from it. Then you take what happens and you improve. Thank you.
Judges, go ahead and ask some questions.
Okay. You mentioned that sometimes parents say that something is right because it's right or wrong because they say it. And to what extent do you think adulthood and experience of life play a role in decision making and in what young people needs to understand or obey?
Thank you for your question. I believe that as we grow up, we begin to lose our curiosity because we're so normally answered with things like, because it's good for you, because you have to do it, that we begin to lose like this curiosity that we have like been born with and every human has. And when we grow up, we start to lose this and it becomes like a structure. Like it's embedded into our system where something is either right or wrong. And I believe that we have to change this and help our youth to become like their own person and try their best to make their own decisions for it. So I think that when we parent kids, we don't need to tell them like it's right because I say so or things like that. We have to actually like let them explore why that decision is either good or bad for them. Thank you.
I want to know. I want to find out a little bit more about what you mentioned about the plane accident, and you were in rugby team.
Mm-hmm.
So you told us that back then probably the what they had to do in order to survive was kind of like badly seen by society. But I want to know, according to your opinion, what may have changed that nowadays probably that perception is totally different from what it used to be.
Well, thank you for your question. I think that when they came back, they were like when this like thing about that they ate like their team players and everything was really, they were seen as monsters. And like in these 50 years, like close to 50 that have passed, I think we changed like dramatically our decision between if it was good or bad. And I think it actually like it's implemented because as I said before, morals can change and they depend on the time that we're in. And actually when like a movie is made, for example, like with this, you can see like another perception of how the story happened and can actually like learn that your perspective is not always right and you have like other ones that are actually contributing for you to make a decision. So yeah, I think that is what changed.
Thank you.
Good morning. What do you think can happen to a person who is always seen as good?
Well, I think that a person that is always seen as good has like a lot of responsibility, but also a lot of pressure. Because if you're always seen as good, you try your best like to act for it, and you're not really yourself all the time. You kind of feel like you're acting because you have to be like this role that everyone puts on you, that you're always good. But I think that an important thing to change this is like to meet new people. And when you meet new people, you can change like your perspective and how you talk to them, how you interact with other people. But I think it first needs to change on your mindset. Like you have to understand that not everyone is perfect and maybe you're good, but you're not gonna be great all the time. So I think that it has to change first in our mind so we can show it to the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, if you could give your attention to our next speaker, please.
Tell me I'm a person, not a label. We seem to live in a world where every action, every decision, every move we make seems to come with harsh judgments and labels, as people define us right or wrong. But life shouldn't be like that. Take a moment and look around. You'll see people different and unique from one another, not a label that defines them. Shakespeare's wisdom echoes louder than ever with the Hamlet quote, "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." This quote challenges us to question the society we live in. The act of labeling someone is a result of societal thinking that sadly everyone experiences. Even as a 17-year-old, labels seem to creep up from every angle, dictating how I should look, dress, feel, and even how my own future should look like. Let's dive into the subjectivity of good and bad, how thinking constructs our reality, and breaking stereotypes. Because after all, aren't we more than just a label? To begin with, the idea of good and bad shapes how we see life, especially how we build our moral framework. However, if you dig deep enough, you'll realize these concepts aren't set in stone. On the contrary, they are subjective and vary from person to person, influenced by our backgrounds, religion, family, history, and even our own personal opinions. According to the Scientific American magazine, labels such as quote-unquote ambitious or driven exemplify this subjectivity, as they can be viewed positively or negatively depending on the context. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them, said the famous philosopher Epictetus, reminding us that our worth and identity are not defined by the labels placed upon us, but how we choose to perceive and respond to them. Despite others' labels, we shape our worth and foster empathy by embracing the different viewpoints society has. Secondly, our thoughts shape how we perceive and interpret reality. When investigating this quote, I came across a phrase written by Albert Einstein saying, "The world as we have created is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." If we want to change the world, we have to change how we think. No problem can be solved from the same consciousness that created it. This is why we must learn to see the world anew. We need to understand that people change, expand their understanding and way of looking at the world. Let's acknowledge Nelson Mandela, a man who, despite facing labels of racial discrimination, imprisonment, and inhumane conditions, held his head high and fought for his beliefs. His transformative mindset played a crucial role in ending apartheid, becoming South Africa's first black president, fostering unity and making history. Times change, so we need to change too. In other words, we evolve. We always have. Imagine a young girl growing up in the south side of Chicago, dreaming of making a difference in the world. Despite facing adversity and doubters who question her abilities because of her race, gender, and stereotypical labels imposed upon her, she refuses to be defined by them. This leads her to become the first African-American woman to serve as the First Lady, an inspiring writer, lawyer, but most importantly, she serves as a role model for women and young girls like myself, inspiring us to pursue our passions fearlessly. This is the life of Michelle Obama, an inspirational leader who embodies the core message of Hamlet's quote. She reminds us that stereotypes are constructs of our own perceptions and ideas, and it is within our power to challenge and change them. To conclude our journey, let us draw from Shakespeare's wisdom and remember that the world is not simply black or white. It's filled with shades of grey. We shape our reality by acknowledging the subjectivity of our perceptions and the power of our thoughts. Instead of letting stereotypes cloud our judgments, we can choose to see beyond labels. So next time you find yourself being defined, look at yourself in the mirror. I'll promise you'll see a person, a resilient, vibrant individual with limitless potential, not a label. Thank you.
ahead, judges.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Are you the kind of person that keeps to a decision or a way of looking at things or not?
Thank you for your question. To be honest, I'm kind of both. Sometimes I'm easy to make a decision, but sometimes I can vary because I don't know the outcome it can have on my life and the others that surround me. That is why we are sometimes quick to judge, but we should learn and understand and know what can happen before making a decision. We need to be informed, so we make the best one.
Thank you.
Lina, in your daily life, as a schoolgirl or with your family and friends, how do you try to escape not being a label, but more consider yourself as a person?
To be honest, I have considered myself behind a label. I believe that if you want to overcome it, you need to know who you are. First, I thought gender stereotypes was a label I identified as, but as I grew up, I came to realize that I determine who I am, not the ones that surround me. I make my future, and I'm the one that needs to be myself, so people can understand that their opinions are not going to affect who I am. Thank you.
And here in Chile, Carolina, what examples of stereotypes do you perceive, and how that perception affects the way of addressing others?
For example, as I said before, a label I have identified as is gender stereotypes. Growing up, I have seen how girls face difficulties when trying to pursue or do activities that are usually related to a certain gender. For example, I like to play football, and at my school, PE class doesn't allow girls to play football in their curriculum, but boys do. And if we want to change that, we need to show the world who we are and what we're capable of, and not let others define us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, speaker number 4. Can you give your attention to our next speaker, please?
Sorry, a little sick. The mirage of good and bad. My boy, I have taught you many things regarding almost everything I know. I have taught you about ethics, history, philosophy, and life, said my grandfather. Yet despite this, there is one lesson that you must never forget, he said. And what is it? I replied. It is to be a wise man. Do you know what a wise man is? It's to be like you, I told him. My grandfather simply chuckled. Oh son, I'm no wise man. But I do know what a wise man is. He looked at me with this serious yet calm expression. A wise man is he who knows how to take the right path. And which is the right path? I responded with intrigue. The right path is the one which leads to good for you and everybody around you. What an elegant answer to such a complex question, I thought to myself. And with this lesson, I traveled like a lost explorer in the vast desert of my mind. Yet, unbeknownst to me, the map that I used didn't guide me to the truth, for the lines of the universe were much more blurry than what I could imagine. So I walked and walked like a fool, you could say, endlessly towards a mirage, the mirage of good and bad. But I wasn't the only traveler that had seeked the truth. Yet unlike me, some had seen the real truth, free of my misconceptions. For example, Kenneth Gergen, a social scientist and the main author on social constructionism. The NYU has a study on his theory, and they say, the theory of social constructionism postulates that much of what we perceive as reality is actually the outcome of a dynamic process of construction, influenced by ourselves and by our cultures. With this definition, we can state that good and bad, unlike nature or the universe, are social constructs. And not only can we create our own social constructs, but we can also create our own personal narratives. One poll, for example, has a study on the American population of the United States, and it shows that 46% of Americans believe that their best person they know. Best person. So this really shows how we can construct our own realities that affect the ways that we view our lives. But Kenneth wasn't the only explorer that had sought the truth. For long, long ago, there was a wise man, you could say, Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher. He states, if a mosquito could create its own conception of the world and its own language, it would immediately, if not instantly, think of good and bad. Why is that? It is because if the mosquito were to hypothetically become a thinking creature, just like us, it would need the concept of good and bad to survive. For we humans need guidelines and rules to coexist. And throughout our human histories, we can see this with the Hammurabi Code, the Penal Code, the Roman Law, the Ten Commandments, even the Human Rights Act. All different instances when we can see these rules that we have made to coincide together and live together happily. But this isn't the only way that we can see good and bad. Not only in our rules, but in our way that we conceive our lives. For always when we talk, we tell stories. And the concept of a story relies on good and evil, on good and bad, and these polar opposites that are constantly clashing, creating a conflict. And every single story needs a conflict. It needs drama in a certain way. And we see this drama in every aspect of our lives, in all of our media. When we watch a movie, when we watch a television show, when we read a book, or when we hear an oral presentation about good and bad. All different instances where we can see both of these concepts. But I wasn't closer to the truth. And these many answers left me more confused than what I had ever been. If good and bad is just a created concept, then what's the point? And in the distance, I saw the mirage disappear, and in its place, there sat the Hammurabi stone. A feeling of sadness and distress filled me as it fell to the ground. So, if I find the answer, it will be my own personal narrative, will be created by me, then what's even the point of thinking? But in that moment, I heard the voice of my grandfather calling behind me. I stood up, and to my surprise, to my disbelief, the writings of the stone had changed to what my grandfather had said so long ago. The wise man is he who knows how to take the right path. And in that moment, in that instant, I realized the truth. That it was in front of me this whole time. For when I found the mirage, I found that there was nothing there. I foolishly thought that good and bad didn't exist. But that wasn't the point. The answer was that good and bad could be created. I could choose to be kind. I could choose to be helping, to be caring. I could choose to be good. And when I did so, when I chose the right path, I would become what my grandfather told me to be all those years ago. I would be a wise man.
Cristóbal.
Yes.
How could a wise man identify subjectivity against guide rules that organize our society?
Well, a wise man will, of course, have its own moral compass. I remember that my grandfather would always tell me, you must do what you think is right, even if sometimes the law doesn't go with it. But we must always try to be good. We must not try to break rules. But the wise man understands that everything to a certain point is subjective, but our effects are what really count at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Cristóbal, good morning.
Good morning.
Have you ever been in a position of conflict where you have had to decide between the good and the bad?
Well, I feel that everyone in a certain point has felt that. I struggle sometimes that I really go with my own ideas. I remember when I wrote this, that my parents would say, let me help you. And I would say, no, I want to write this speech. This is my speech. But I figured out that at the end, I was actually getting more confused. And I really, at one point, thought, well, good and bad doesn't even exist. But that is when I really tried to fight against my own personal narratives and listen to my family and to my grandfather. And I there realized that the point was trying to be the wise man.
Thank you.
Cristóbal,
yes.
How do you usually face your own conflicts in life? As example, when you get to see something unfair going on in society or something going on probably in your own reality, let's say in your school?
Well, I feel that we all have the right and the power to say something when we disagree, and I feel that sometimes it is we feel like we cannot speak our opinion, and I feel that one must always say what they think in a respectful manner, of course. But when we have societies, we need to everyone be able to give their opinion and say what they think, so we can work together and strive together to a better world.
All right.
Okay, could you give your attention to our next speaker, please?
Self-compassion, the key to changing the way we think and perceive. It was 3rd of March, and I was sitting on my bed when I hear the phone ring. It's my friend on the other line. There's a party tonight at 11. I look at my watch and it's 8. I have 3 hours to get ready. I go to my closet and suddenly I get this overwhelming sensation. I have nothing to wear. Everything is going to make me look ugly or washed out. I take an hour and a half to get ready. And as I looked at myself in the mirror, I thought, I look terrible. I don't want to go to this party. I owed my friend, so I went anyways. And as I greeted them, I could feel someone staring at me. This guy is probably judging me, and he's right. I look hideous. Now, same story, 3rd of March, you know the drill. I hear the phone, I go to my closet, and all I could think about was, I have so many clothes to wear. Everything is going to make me look amazing. And if something doesn't matter, because I'll wear something else. Take an hour and a half to get ready. And as I look at myself in the mirror, I feel powerful and confident because I'm going to have an spectacular time. I go to the party, I greet my friends, and I could feel someone staring at me. Thank you. This guy probably thinks I look beautiful. And if he is judging me, that's too bad for him because I'm having an excellent time and that's what's important. Do you see how, in this story, our thoughts impact the way we perceive things? And that is directly related with our mood. When we are able to change that mindset, we can see the world in a completely different way. A negative mindset brings toxic thoughts, and toxic thoughts elevate our level of stress. When we are stressed, our body produces a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol, or hypercortisol, does not only affect us psychologically and socially, but it also affects us physically. The National Institute of Health has backed up multiple research that say that when our body faces high levels of cortisol, our immune system is suppressed, which in other words means we get sick more often. But what is the key to changing the way we think and perceive? The answer is self-compassion. First, what is compassion? Compassion is described by Oxford dictionaries as, and I quote, a strong feeling of sympathy for people or animals who are suffering and the desire to help them. Kristen Neff is a psychologist at the University of UC Berkeley with a doctorate and currently a professor at the University of Texas. She describes self-compassion as the simple process of compassion in words, treating yourself the way you would treat a friend, with self-kindness. A few weeks ago, I was talking with my mother and she told me this very interesting story. There were two women chatting at a cafeteria, and one of them said to the other, I applied for this job, but I'm probably not going to get it. Plus, I gained some weight. The other woman looked at her and she goes, yes, you have. You look terrible. Plus, of course you're not going to get the job. Someone else is going to get it. I look at my mom and I go, Mom, why do you tell something? This woman has no right to treat the other one that way. And my mother
wise woman, she looked at me and she goes, well, don't sometimes you treat yourself that way too? How many times do we talk to ourselves that way and normalize it? Have I said those exact same things to me before? To conclude everything I've said, if I could go to the girl at the first story, I would give her a hug and tell her that being a positive mindset, having a positive mindset doesn't mean being an optimistic and positive person all the time, but it means that at the end you should always tell yourself that everything is going to be okay. Finally, I would like to quote a poem of Antonia Villalobos, who is a Latin poet, and she said, what if a poem were just for me? What if I were audience enough? Because I am. Because this person here is alive, is flesh, it's conscious. Does it count? Yes, it counts. Thank you very much.
So you mentioned lots of elements in order to feel confident towards different things in life. But you mentioned somehow a posture, clothing, and that would make you feel confident. Do you think those are important things? What other elements could you add to build up confidence in young people like you?
Thank you for your question. The first part of the story was about how, in a situation that is exactly the same, the first one to the second one, I get the exact time to get ready, and I wear the same things, and I look at myself in the mirror, and the same guy is looking at me. But what changes? What changes is not physical things, it's not what I decide to wear, but it's in here. It's how I decide to change that mindset. And when I decide to treat myself, like in the second story, with self-compassion, I am able to not only have a better time, my mood increases, and I feel more confident and powerful. So the elements of our surroundings do help, but what makes the difference between the first part and the second part? It's right in here. It's how we talk and think to ourselves, about ourselves.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mikaela,
Yes.
we all know that social media nowadays for people your age is playing a really decisive role on many times with confidence. So among your friends, how do you try to break that cycle of lack of confidence and how to promote self-compassion amongst them?
I am a 17-year-old, which means my friends and I all have Instagram and WhatsApp and social media where we expose things, photos of us, food, things that happen throughout our day. And I decided to focus on self-compassion. One of the reasons was because most of my friends have really bad self-esteem. Most of them, when I tell them, she told me, one of my friends, Laura, she told me, I got a bad grade. I'm sure it's because I gained weight. I look at her and I go, what? And she goes, yes, because I was not feeling myself and that's why I got a bad grade. And I looked at her and I go, look, these things happen. Our bodies are gonna change, things are gonna change, but you decide how you look at yourself. And basing what happens to you in something external is just unrealistic. Social media does us that. I go through TikTok and I see a supermodel wearing this tight bikini. She looks gorgeous, of course. But I look at myself in the mirror and I go, I don't look like that. I'm much paler, a little bit fatter, but not in a bad way. And I think, how is this going to affect me? Is it going to make me love me less? Or is it actually just going to make me happy for a time and then I still accept my body how it is? So I always try to tell my friends that social media, well, everyone knows it's not real. You all have heard that phrase. But what's also important is that besides if it's real or not, we should never compare what we see to the value we put to ourselves.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mikaela, good morning.
Good morning.
People are not normally used to receiving criticism. How do you think you can offer criticism to people without making them feel, hurt or bad?
That actually is a very good question. Thank you. I had an experience where that happened to me. I was doing this speech, and my dad was over there, and he goes, I love this speech, but I think you should say it slower, because I'm a bit of an anxious person, so sometimes I rush too much. And I go, yes, but that means you don't like it. I knew you wouldn't like it. And my father, he looks at me and he goes, what? Mika, what are you talking about? And as I started developing more of the speech, I controlled my tone, and I hope he's impressed. But what I could say about this is that criticism is the same for everyone. I can say the same thing, you're being too fast, to do different people. What changes is how they react. There's not a way to say criticism that makes someone feel more insulted or less insulted. That depends completely on the person, the value they think of themselves, and mostly their personality too. Like, let's be honest, sometimes we're not very good at handling critics. One of my friends here said, being wrong is not an easy thing to have. And sometimes when people tell us that we made a mistake, we feel very conscious about ourselves. So in conclusion to what I've tried to say, is not what you say, the criticism, is how the person receives it. And that is not up to you, but it's up to the person that hears you. And what can I say to the person that hears you is, hear my friend's speech, because in there, she talks about how when you decide to say something, when you decide to hear something, about criticism, it's up to you how do you decide to react. If you decide to look in a positive way or a negative way.
Thank you.
Sit down?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, according to our timetable, we were supposed to have a 20-minute break, and we'll probably do 10, maybe overlap to the 15, but we'll try and regather everybody back here at 11:30. This is going to be your space, so you can leave your things here if you want, but as you leave the room, remember, keep your name tag on. And we should have things set up for the break out there. The other group is already dismissed. The judges will all come back in at 11:30, and that's when we'll do our impromptu, formal impromptu. We're gonna try and get everybody back at 11:30. We'll take a 10-minute break, and we'll try and be back. We'll see. It's like herding cats, We'll see how that goes, right?
They don't have to use it, that's like part.
Okay, you should have in your pamphlets your hard copy on the impromptu. My classmates can't do that. Will make notes as each one speaks. For anyone that's a tiebreaker. After we're done here, all 6 judges will have a conference room that you can talk about new advantages. So that will just help you in your discussion. Okay, do we have anyone that knows how to run PowerPoint? Can you find somebody that'll get the PowerPoint done for us, please?
Como el flash one point.
Do you know how to do it? Get the PowerPoint going? Okay, 11:30, we were supposed to start the speeches, so we're consistently 15 minutes behind schedule here, but we'll make up with it. I won't be so long-winded here in this presentation because we have already talked about actually the impromptus. Now this shouldn't be a surprise for anybody, but it seems to be a surprise for a few of you. In your packets, you should have a copy of the speeches, and the judges have. These topics are all current events, the kinds of things that you're going to hear about just in passing. It's not anything that you're going to have to add any kind of statistics or anything, but you certainly should have an opinion about it because it's the kind of things that are contemporary right now. So what we will do is we will randomly pull out and randomly pull out a topic, and then that person will have 1 minute to kind of collect their thoughts, and then our timekeeper is going to get you started, and you will have 1 to 2 minutes to speak. So you'll get a warning when you've done 1 minute, and you think, oh, gotta wrap this up. You'll get another warning. What did we put? The second warning is going to be 1 minute in 30 seconds. That'll be your second warning. And then at 2 minutes, we'll say thank you, and you can stop. So again, when you see the second warning, that would be a good time to wrap up your thoughts so you don't get cut off, because then you're within the range of what was expected. Okay? This is an opportunity to see how comfortable you are with public speaking on a topic. We know that you can prepare a good speech. Everyone has done a wonderful job with it. But now, if you're given something to talk about, can you do that in an intelligent way on a topic that is obviously fairly current in our society? Okay? So that's the idea. Now, the judges have a basic rubric that they will put generally what you did for content, your delivery, and the overall effect. This won't be part of your points for your scoring for advancing, but it will help in terms of many times the scores are very, very close. And so this helps the judges to see who's a comfortable speaker. Who can speak about something other than what's already prepared? This will help them in the tie-breaking situations. Your job is going to be, every time somebody comes up, I will give you a couple of Post-its, and you will put something that you think they did well, and on another one, something that maybe they could work on and improve upon. Now, the whole idea, be kind, be specific, but be helpful, right? You're here to support them because you're in the same situation. You know what it's like to be up there in the hot seat. So, something that really struck you that you thought, for example, I really like when you said, or it was interesting how you compared this, or I was a bit confused when you were talking about such and such. You find something that you can be complimentary and something that if they had a chance to really work on a prepared speech, maybe something they could work on. Knowing that it's impromptu, but you know, that's the whole idea, okay? Any questions about that? Okay, good. Then we'll see who's gonna be Okay. Oh, I can't believe it. First again, Amapola. The luck of the Wow. Okay. Your speech. Okay. We'll have 1 minute before we tell you the story. Can you use paper? You can use paper. You can use note cards. You can, but you have to be sequestered off. So I would advise you to just say what's in your heart. Because people ask you these things when you're out for dinner. So these are the kinds of things. Her topic is going to be, how can we prevent bullying? How can we prevent bullying? Timekeeper, give them 1 minute on the clock, please.
How to prevent bullying? It's a pretty good question and very difficult to answer too. We can all see that bullying cases have been increasing in the last few decades. And what can we do against it? I strongly believe that it does not depend just on the authorities, but on us, simple teenagers. The first step, I would like to say that in the recess or when you're having free time and you can see someone feeling lonely or with a sad face, there is reason to it. So it does not take any effort to go ask them, are you doing okay? And with a smile, you can change everything. No one will be lonely without a reason. So try to investigate about that and try to give a positive comment. You can do many, many things with just one smile and prevent someone from feeling bad. Thank you.
Carolina C. Your topic. Facebook, social network, makes people feel less happy. Give her 1 minute.
Thumbs up.
Raise your hands if you use social media. Well, I can see everybody does, and like everything in life, there is a good and bad side. But if we had to say does social media make people less happy? In some way, it can. It can affect your life. Sometimes when we look at people in social medias, when we see their lives, what they're doing, how they look, their friends, their personalities, we try to compare our lives to their own. And these can end up affecting our lives in a big way. We should try to always be comfortable with our own skin and be ourselves, because each person is different. And if you don't have everything you want in your life, try to fight to achieve it. And don't compare yourself, because you are unique in your own way, and that could lead you to be your own person in the best way possible. So something I can tell you is that yes, I have compared myself to people around me in social media because I'm human as well. But I know that it's better if I try to learn who I am instead of trying to be someone I'm not. Thank you.
Nolan. Nolan, you're up. Center stage. Peer pressure is a good motivator.
Time starts now.
Okay. Peer pressure is a good motivator. See this? This paper? I'm pretty sure, well, you don't even have to read it. Most of us already know the topic by now. It's easy to say that currently I am under peer pressure, as so has everyone else been under the speeches. It's not easy to do a speech when you have so many eyes watching you, knowing that a single failure can probably cause you to not go to the finals, not go to London, not advance in life. It's a strange topic if you think about it. Peer pressure is really mitigated and related to our ancestry, to our biology. For example, if we take a look at, I don't know, me, let's say someone tries to rob me at gunpoint. I know, it's a very big example. What would I be doing? Well, I'd be alert. I'd be under peer pressure. So effectively what happens is that when we feel moments of strain, we feel like we need to act fast, we think fast. My legs are shaking right now. My hands are shaking right now, very mildly, but they are. So if there's anything to take from this, to learn from this, I'd say that it's that we need to live how we want. It's difficult for me to say as I am like this, but if there's anything to truly learn in life, it's that living calm is just all right. Thank you.
Cristóbal. How to ensure gender equality and recognize the women's role in society.
Time starts now.
Of like thinking?
Yeah, I know.
Like your thoughts.
Okay, now.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Time's up.
So, how to ensure gender equality and recognize women's role in society? First of all, you all can see that I am a man. Okay? So, you might be asking yourself, who am I to give my opinion on this topic? But I really find that sometimes it is interesting to hear maybe the other side of the story. See, women throughout history have lived, for what I know, in our Western world, they have lived oppression. I remember in ancient Greece that citizens could not be women. In Rome, they thought that women only had the mental capacity of a child of 10 years old. So we can see that throughout history, women have been oppressed. But now we are in a new era where we have been seeing new feminist movements that are fighting for women's rights. We can see that the gender pay gap is slowly but surely improving. And that the way that we conceptualize being a woman is much more fluent. Why is this? Because we have to understand that our society has to be equal. No matter the gender or your sex or your sexual identification, it is really important to build and strive for a society that is equal, that is just, that is good. And even if I am a man, I can fight against oppression too. I can choose to be equal. I can choose to treat women with respect. And that is the important thing. I feel that men can strive to be more equal and to be more just in their way that they view women. Thank you very much.
That's your souvenir. Mikaela, R. Your topic. How can we work towards sustainable cities and communities?
Your thinking time starts now.
So, have you asked yourselves how your neighbor lives? Have you seen the kind of life he follows? The base of sustainability is to leave aside selfishness. Our society works on focusing on productivity, on producing, on what's going to be the next product we're going to sell in the market. But having a society that's sustainable, we're going to have to leave aside those things that make us selfish. Because if we have a company, a private company, he's going to look for a product that's looking to make an impact in society. But sustainability wants us to have benefits that won't affect us to the long term. Our world is endangered in many ways, but our world and our current leaders sometimes leave that aside. If we want a world that's sustainable, we're going to have to leave aside selfishness and focus on how we're going to impact the world. Thank you.
Taehwan.
Oh, great. I apologize.
Team sports build strong individuals.
Time starts now.
All right. Team sports build strong individuals. Long time ago when I was a kid, my dad always used to tell me to do one team sport and one individual sport. So I always went into football and swimming. Now, I learned a lot from swimming, an individual sport, but I learned much more with the team sport that I did with football, even with the 2 small years that I had. What I experienced was teamwork, how to work with others, how to understand and acknowledge other people's opinions. And because of that, I became a better person and I became more compassionate, understanding, and more knowledgeable. Of course, now I don't even do football or swimming. I did boxing. And of course, everyone thinks that boxing is an individual sport, but it sometimes is not. because you have to believe in your coaches, you have to work with your mates in gyms. It is a team sport in some certain cases, and even in those times you can build friendships, you can build trust. And when you're getting punched in the face, you have to trust the other guy. And nowadays my brother is doing football as well, because obviously he's in that age. And as I can see, he is building friendships, he's building compassion, he is being more understandable. And I 100% agree that team sports is necessary for kids because it builds strong individuals.
Paula B. How to eliminate child labor.
Time starts now.
How to improve conditions for children who have to work every day. I think that I'm one person and that I can't do a lot, but I can give my opinion on this topic. I feel that every day you aren't really grown to think about children who have to get up every day and have to work. And worst of that, it says child labor. I assume it's not because they want to. I don't think a child wants to get up, go to work, have to earn their money, earn their food. It's not how childhood works. A child should be playing, living their life, having a fun time. I feel like the way we can improve this is maybe think a bit more about this. I feel like I have never thought out of this in my daily life. And sometimes we have to think out of the box that we live, because I can assure you, I don't think you see children in Chile, or maybe you do, maybe not where I live, but I don't think in our daily lives we see children have to work for everything they have. Instead, outside of our life, there are many children who have to work for them. I feel like I invite you to ask yourself, outside of your world, what their life must be like. Thank you.
Isabela. Topic. How to protect the Amazon rainforest.
How to protect the Amazon rainforest. Back when I was like in 5th grade or 6th grade, I don't remember well, I started reading a textbook because there was an assignment I had to make. And there was this interesting short paragraph about the Amazon forest, that they were the lungs of Earth. They had such a variety of wildlife and plants and trees. It was amazing. Now, as time goes by, nowadays all we see is animals are dying. They're getting out of their environments, you know? The forest is dying. We are killing the lungs of the Earth. But what can we do about it? I mean, I didn't know up until I was in 6th grade and then just forgot it until today or yesterday or when it was in the news. I think that the power we people have is that we can spread. We can spread rumors, which are not that good, and we can spread information. If we get the information about this rainforest, this really important rainforest dying, then it can get to the safest hands it can. You know, we can do something, everyone equally. We can help. No, look, I have this friend who works in CONAF. Wildfires have been rampaging lately. You know, with the news, for example, in Viña del Mar, forests are burning down. And I find it really, really worrying. And many people don't even know the Amazon exists. So once we make people conscious about their environment, about what they're killing, then we can start saving the forest. Thank you.
Right now, we'll hear from Camila C. to reduce waste generation in modern societies.
Time starts now.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay, I want everyone in this room to raise their hands if they have ever recycled something. Okay, we all know what this means. In today's society, we're now learning that our waste and the trash that we're throwing out is making an actual impact on our world. And the only ones that at the end are actually gonna suffer is us. So, how can we change this? How can we fix the planet that we're now breaking? To reduce waste, there's millions of ways to do this. But the first thing that we need to understand is that we need to be informed. We cannot reduce waste and help other nations to do it as well if we do not understand how to do it and how to explain to other people as well. We need to start at home, in schools, maybe even in universities. We need to show ways so that the people from the start can start building up a way to reduce our waste. Another great example of this that I have been come across of is actually our food. The food that we throw out can actually be reused. Many restaurants or in our own homes, we kind of throw everything to the trash that we think it's not useful anymore. But all of this food can actually help people that are living in world hunger, maybe. So, by saving all of these resources and becoming informed, we can actually reduce the waste and save the planet that is now dying. Thank you.
Prize in here. Unless I had a major typo here, we should have Mikaela coming up there. Yes? Let's see which is your topic. How do we reduce inequalities?
Time starts now.
Time's up.
How do we reduce inequalities? I am a 15-year-old standing here. I have a very good and private education. I have a very, very caring family, and I am privileged. So it's very hard for me to start this topic because I have the luck to be in a space where I have not suffered from discrimination. When we talk about inequalities and we talk about how to reduce them, it's related with discrimination. Now, you can discriminate a person by something as large as their gender or how their economic situation, or it could be as specific as this girl has red hair and this other one has blue hair, so I like the red one better. We as society face inequalities all the time. And now, what can I say to you? That everyone here that is next to me has the privilege to be in a place where, with a good family, or at least I can think. And I could say that we have to be more careful when we decide to look at the person next to us and discriminate, and remember that discrimination has many sides. Thank you very much.